Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a truly universal, just wildly relatable mystery of human behavior. You know the exact one I'm talking about. That moment where you suddenly decide that right now is the perfectly rational time to, scrub the baseboards with a toothbrush instead of finishing a massive project. It's something pretty much all of us have experienced at one point or another, and it usually strikes at literally the worst possible time. So we're going to unpack the fascinating psychology behind why we suddenly decide to clean when we are highly stressed out.
Have you ever scrubbed a floor right before a major deadline? Just picture that completely chaotic feeling for a second. Your inbox is overflowing, your boss, or maybe your professor, is waiting on you, the clock is relentlessly ticking down, and what do? You suddenly ignore all of that piling work. You look around, see a kitchen that wasn't even genuinely dirty, and decide that right now, in this exact moment, you absolutely must deep clean the tile grout or alphabetically reorganize your spice rack. I mean, in the moment, it feels like madness, right? It feels like you're completely self-sabotaging.
But here's the amazing truth. This is not laziness. It is actually your brain coping with emotional overload. If there is one core insight you take away from our time together today, let it be this total reframing of the situation. When you abandon your workstation to frantically fold laundry, psychology tells us this isn't simply about procrastination. It doesn't mean you suddenly magically care about household chores. Rather, it's your mind's incredibly clever way of coping with emotional overload. You aren't failing, your brain is just shifting into survival mode. Let's unpack exactly how this works by looking at 5 distinct psychological drivers behind this behavior.
This brings us right to driver 1, craving immediate control. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what is happening inside your head. When you face a massive stressor, maybe it's a huge project, a personal crisis, or a major life event, the overarching feeling is just one of being completely overwhelmed. Your internal environment is pure, overwhelming chaos. Everything feels complex, abstract, and totally out of your hands. But a messy room, well, that represents predictable external order. It's a problem with a crystal clear immediate solution. Our brains react to overwhelming situations by desperately seeking something, literally anything that they can control. By cleaning, you're providing your brain with a highly visible reward. You are generating a false but incredibly effective sense of regaining control over your external environment, precisely when your internal environment feels completely chaotic.
Let's see how this builds into our second driver, preserving limited cognitive energy. Think about the hidden cost of a messy room. When life gets exceptionally difficult, your brain basically goes into overdrive. Stress isn't just an emotional state. It is an incredibly resource-intensive physical state that rapidly consumes your limited cognitive energy. Every single item out of place forces your brain to subconsciously process it as visual noise. All that excess sensory input just adds to the heavy load your brain is already carrying, which actively increases your stress. So by putting things away, organization naturally protects your mental bandwidth. You're essentially turning down the volume of your environment to preserve your remaining mental energy so you can eventually sit down and focus on the real task.
Okay, let's dive into this a layer deeper with driver 3, emotional regulation.
When we're under intense pressure or dealing with deep frustration, we don't just sit there passively. People instinctively, and quite often unconsciously, seek ways to physically regulate their emotional reactions. We just need an outlet for all that nervous energy. This introduces the concept of a physical buffer. These are simple, repetitive physical motions that actually calm the nervous system and manage unprocessed, anxious thoughts. Think about the act of wiping down a desk, sweeping a floor, or rhythmically folding clothes. Engaging in them actively soothes your nervous system. It acts as a physical buffer, giving your anxious brain a quiet, focused moment to safely manage and process the stressful thoughts that naturally bubble to the surface when we're panicking.
Now, driver 4 introduces a very primal part of our psychology, choosing instant dopamine over future consequences.
The human brain is an absolute marvel, but, it has a built-in bias. It vastly prefers immediate rewards over the delayed gratification of massive projects. Huge life changes and massive work assignments require immense effort for a payoff that might be weeks or even months away. The delayed gratification of a huge project is just an exhausting slog. When you're stressed, your brain doesn't want to wait for that distant payoff. It wants a fast, guaranteed hit of accomplishment right now. But the instant dopamine of sorting a pile of papers? That's a quick win. It creates a feeling of forward momentum exactly when you otherwise feel completely stuck and paralyzed.
Finally, this brings us to driver 5, building psychological safety. When your mind is already heavily burdened by the demands of the day, your immediate physical environment matters more than ever.
Sitting in a chaotic, messy room doesn't just distract you, it actually amplifies your existing anxiety. Why? Because predictability creates a powerful sense of security. So the crucial point is that the human brain intensely prefers what feels familiar and orderly. By physically organizing your immediate surroundings, you are constructing a highly predictable microenvironment. This actively reduces the feeling of being emotionally exposed and vulnerable to the unknown things stressing you out. You are literally building a safe fortress before you do battle with your tasks.
Which brings us right to the validating conclusion.
When you synthesize all these psychological clues, a completely different picture emerges of what you are actually doing when you grab a sponge instead of your laptop. Stress cleaning restores order, predictability, and psychological safety. I want to empower and reassure you one final time here. Choosing to clean when you should be working absolutely does not mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean you're just avoiding responsibility. Honestly, it usually just means your nervous system is overwhelmed, and it's intelligently using the physical tools it has available to restore a sense of safety and order to your world. It's a brilliant, completely natural coping mechanism.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder. We've seen how cleaning is a psychological tool, but it begs the question, what other physical tools is your nervous system using to cope with the unknown? Think about your own habits for a second. When the pressure is on, do you pace around the room? Do you reorganize your digital files? Do you start baking? It is truly fascinating to step back and just observe our own psychological survival mechanisms in action.
If you found this insightful, remember to hit subscribe to learn the hidden psychology behind everyday human behavior. Because once you truly understand how the mind works, you begin noticing incredible hidden truths about yourself and the people around you that most never even think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and keep observing the fascinating ways your mind works.